This is KUTX 98.9, the Austin Music Experience. I'm Laurie Gallardo, and this is KUTX at home. You know, at home. I wish we were in Studio 1A, but we're doing it from home. And I have been waiting for this one. We had to postpone the interview, but we're doing it now. I want you to please welcome my special guest, Genesis Owusu, and of course, the mind, the creativity behind the awesome moniker, Kofi Owusu-Ansah. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I am extremely thrilled with Smiling with No Teeth, and this is where I'm definitely beginning. When I admitted to you earlier that I am a true nerd, just the imagery that the title of your latest album tends to send out, it struck a chord within me immediately. Smiling with no teeth. Perhaps I am smiling and I'm also watching you at the same time. I love it. I love it. And I did want to ask, recently you said something along the lines of, it's more about the concept than the actual medium. I was really captivated by this because to me, that just really gives me a sense of how it is you work and how I was beginning to see the concepts and the common threads throughout the album, which I will get to in a minute. Could you elaborate on that? Because I absolutely think that just nails completely what it is you do. It shows your creative spark.
Yeah, for sure. So I said that in I think I was asked why I started making music specifically. And I told the person who asked the question that when I started making music, I didn't start making music as like my be all end all. I actually started a bunch of different creative mediums at the same time. So I was making music and I was making digital art and I was designing clothes. And it was all about, I saw these creative mediums not as separate entities, but as tools for the same thing, which is just creative expression. And it was kind of like, if I have a message or an emotion, will this work better in a song, or will this work better on a t-shirt, or will this work better on an artwork? You know, so it's like it's all the whole package, and just using the best tool to express what I'm trying to express to the fullest extent.
I certainly see that. And again, it's exciting for me to capture the themes. And it's something I get into personally because I tend to dive deep. And another connection that I truly felt, and this is something you are not shy talking about, dealing with depression. And again, this is something so many people connect to this. It's incredible. And I'm glad that more artists are talking about it. It's bringing it to the table. And again, this goes to the brilliance of Smiling with No Teeth. 2 tracks in particular, and we were chatting about these earlier, Gold Chains and Don't Need. And these, you know, that's a great thing about listening with your headphones. You can enjoy the music, but you listen to the words. And I understand that as we listen, we apply our own meaning. But this is absolutely the common thread that I found connecting the entire album. 15 tracks, brilliantly done. Didn't feel like 15 tracks to me.
Thank you.
I'm just like, doesn't feel like it at all. And again, this really spoke to me. Both of those, actually, most of the music addresses this, and it's done so fluidly. It's done so, you know, they may even be sounding like happy tunes or just badass tunes, and you do it so well. What inspires you? I mean, I know that's a terrible question, but to me, that I wonder how people do that. I wonder, to me, that's magic, Kofi. That is absolute brilliance.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, I've always been really interested in, like I've said before, just like songs like Hey Ya by Outkast or 1999 by Prince, where they sound super upbeat, super fun party tracks. You're thinking Prince is talking about, partying to like it's 1999, but then you listen, you're on your fourth listen and you recognize he's actually talking about like Armageddon and the end of the world and, all this crazy stuff. And I've always been fascinated by that phrase of you lure more flies with honey than with vinegar. Because a lot of the time growing up, for me, unfortunately, trying to talk about issues like depression and racism and stuff like that,
Yeah.
people just don't want to hear it, unfortunately. So it's coming into like songs like those two and just other things of that kind of likeness. Yeah, it's been really interesting playing with almost like baiting people into a false sense of security so I can actually tell them what's really going on when they finally decide to listen.
I think it's a positive thing to bring people in. I don't think it's too sneaky. I think and this is bringing a conversation that needs to be had. And the first time I heard Don't Need, I was laughing out loud because you're basically, to me, it felt like, go to hell, depression. Away with you. And I obviously hold that very closely. But I really enjoyed that. And I thought it was very fun.
Yeah, and like it's also another thing. It's like these things aren't flat two-dimensional concepts. Like they're very multifaceted, they're very ingrained and interwoven into deep fabrics of humanity and society. So it's not like as simple as, oh, you have depression, you're sad all the time, like you face racism, you're the most angry person ever. It's like you can still talk about these things and give them an air of personality and like a whimsical nature if you want. So yeah, I definitely wanted to play with that as well.
Now, this is something else that I think is absolutely incredible. And again, bringing more conversations to the table that must be had. This is in reference to the black dog. And I remember I lost the plot when I heard you make reference to the other black dog. And I said, yes, that's it. This is the discussion about racism. And I have been explaining to people, this is how human beings were referred to.
Yeah.
In everyday conversation, that, the insult. And I thought, look at the duality of that. You are not only dealing with the expression as, the black dog in terms of depression, but you are also discussing racism as well. I love that. And I was wondering if you could also expand on that, because again, both of them, though they're not always related to one another, it just goes together so well. That is the perfect matchup.
Yeah. I feel like kind of going back to what I said near the start, when I started making music, it was fully for creative expression. And I started making music almost for therapy and just for catharsis. As I started making music as a profession, I started having to, make songs to entertain people or stuff like that. But when I started, it was with a very pure intention of just catharsis and liberation. And going back to this album, I feel like I've gone back full circle, and this album is really just me being 100% myself, getting things off my chest that I need to get off my chest. So when I started writing the album, I had written Gold Chains was the first song that I had written, and I was writing these songs about depression, and I was using the euphemism of the black dog. Then I went back inside myself, and I'd realized I have literally been called a black dog as in a racial context. And I thought that was really interesting, how this one term encompassed both of the things that I was going to talk about throughout this album. And it turned out, as I wrote more for the album, the concept kind of refined itself more and more. And these two concepts of depression and racism didn't stay as static concepts. They personified into characters. They become these two characters that dwell on the album, with their own personalities and motives and mannerisms and stuff like that. So like I was saying before, where I had made these songs about depression, but some sound upbeat and fun, like that kind of plays into the characters. This internal black dog, which represents depression, its personality is like it wants to lure you in, almost seduce you, make you its only one, like a toxic relationship. So in that vein, you could make songs sound sexy and alluring, but still be talking about depression. So yeah, it was really just like putting all these dots together was really creatively liberating and exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. It is exciting. It's exciting to hear that. And speaking of putting the album together, I did want to ask you about that. Because from understanding from what I read and seeing the musicians that you pulled together to make the album, I didn't really necessarily see any kind of organization. Instead, it was like, here you all are, I'm going to play you this song. What does this song remind you of? Well, let's see what we can do with that inspiration. Is that how you put it? I mean, if that is how you put it together, I will be even more amazed, because just thinking, you pulled together very talented artists to work with you. And at the same time, I felt that anxiety of, what are we supposed to do? Am I reading him correctly? Those, I go back to I guess, earlier experiences. How was it creating the album like that? That is splendid, but also terrifying to me at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty spot on to how it went down. It is terrifying, but that's how I love to work. I feel like, just like any other human being, I have a comfort zone, and I have things that I know I'm good at, and I know I can make good things in this realm. But it terrifies me even more, and it just bores me to stay in that. Like, I always want to be thrown into a vat of just like chaos and disorder and try and swim my way out of it. So in that sense, like, my manager, I guess he caught that vibe from me as well. So I essentially just got him to arrange this band of very talented musicians: Kieran J. Callanan on guitar, Touch Sensitive on bass, Julian Sudek on drums, my manager himself, Andrew Klippel, on keys. And I essentially went in blindfolded, and I'd never met any of them before except for my manager, obviously. And we just started making the album. And to make things even more intense, we put them in this like bedroom size. Like, it was the five of us and an engineer all in this bedroom size studio in extremely hot weather. So it was just really uncomfortable and disarming. So it was like, it was too hot to act cool or like worry about what other people thought. Like, all we could do was make music. So it was a bonding experience for sure. I'm great friends with all of the band now after that. It was a chaotic experience, but it led to magic.
It feels magic. And I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, well, you all must be dear friends by now, because working in such close quarters, you obviously are going to form some kind of relationship. I mean, that is working from the top of your mind, and whatever hits you, whatever's working, whatever starts to connect, you're going to go with that.
Yeah, and the album is so organic in that essentially all of the songs, they have like production flourishes like from post the jam session, but a lot of the songs are straight rips from the jam session. So like, if a song goes for 3 minutes 16 seconds, it's likely because we were jamming that song in the jam session for 3 minutes and 16 seconds. So it was like extremely organic in that sense.
Yeah, I love it. And one of the other things that I wanted to touch upon, if I could, more and more, and I'm assuming not only speaking as a music fan and a fan of your music, I am also speaking in terms of being in radio, sharing music with listeners, and I'm finding less and less to do with genre, more and more each day. It is just so incredibly limiting. While it does help as maybe a certain touch point to try and describe a few things, to take any one artist and put them in a box is completely pointless. It's useless now, or at least that has been happily my experience, because the artists that I tend to drift toward, to get closer to, don't really have a particular niche or a particular category. Whatever they're struck by, they're going to go with that. And I think Genesis Owusu, shining example. And I get irritated when people just call you an R&B artist or and this artist. And I had heard you talk about that a little bit, and I really, that again is another thing that I'm sure your fans connect with. You just don't run with one kind of music in particular. And I also found that it related to the musicians that you have on your album as well. These came, you know, different experiences, different kinds of styles, all coming into the same room to create this one album.
Yeah. I grew up with a very eclectic household musically. My family and I had just immigrated from Ghana to Australia when I was about 2, and my parents were probably in their late 30s, early 40s. So there was a lot of Ghanaian high life music. My mom was the leader of her church's gospel choir. There was a lot of gospel music. My brother was into like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Foo Fighters and Rage Against the Machine. So there was a lot of that. My dad was just like a bargain bin hunter. Anything that had a interesting album cover, he'd buy it and spin it throughout the house. And then my brother discovered Kanye West. So then the hip hop came into it. It was a very like eclectic mishmash of sounds, and I was the converging point as the youngest in the household. And these different sonics can convey all of these different emotions and experiences. And like I was saying before, none of this is two-dimensional. Like Genesis Owusu isn't the name of a character. It's just me with an alias. Like I'm a human being that can laugh and cry and dance and sing and break down all in the same day. So why shouldn't I be able to convey that in my music with all these different kinds of sonic emotions and energies and stuff like that? It doesn't make sense to me to whittle it down to a two-dimensional character with a catchphrase and, you know, this character does this and this character does this, you know, it doesn't really make sense to me.
Nah, that's boring. You're not boring.
Not at all.
Not at all. I think I have asked my share of nerdy questions, and Kofi, I did want to say thank you again for speaking with me today. I am excited about the new album, and I look forward to sharing it more with our listeners. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad we got to talk.
Me too. Me too. And like I said, full-fledged nerd right here. I have no shame in my nerd game.
Me neither. I'm totally about it.
And I can't wait until artists are able to tour again. Please come to Austin as soon as you're able.
Of course. First flight out, I'm coming.
Awesome. Thank you, Kofi. Take care. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.